Part 1, Her voice in the hallway. I never planned to go back to the house. Not after the way we left it. But when the lawyer called to say my aunt had passed and left the property in my name, I didn't think, I just drove. 4 hours north, through roads that curled like quiet regrets, until the trees began to thicken and the cell signal slipped away. I hadn't seen the house in 13 years. Not since Emma and I spent our last night there, shouting across the cold walls, silence between us like a wound neither of us knew how to close. I parked on the gravel drive. The porch looked older, but mostly the same. The paint had chipped more. The wind moved the swing slowly. The kind of place where time didn't so much pass as settle. I walked up the steps, key in hand. The door stuck, same as it used to. I pushed it open with my shoulder, half expecting the air inside to smell like her. It didn't. Just dust and something like cedar. Cold wood. Stagnant memories. I turned on a lamp in the front room and stood there, letting the silence crawl back over me. The same couch. Same faint stain on the floor where red wine had bled into the grain. Same photo on the mantel, me and Emma, summer of '07, before everything broke and we pretended we were fine. The house hadn't changed. But I had. I walked the rooms in order. Kitchen. Living room. Back hallway. Each space filled with the kind of echoes that never make sound but still weigh something. And then I heard her voice. Not a memory. Not in my head. Her voice. In the hallway. Soft. Real. Calling my name. I turned so fast my knee cracked. No one. Just the long corridor, the old rug, the coat rack still bent where it had fallen that last night. But the air felt charged. Like something had just been there. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in the bed we used to share, fully clothed, staring at the ceiling with the lamp on, her name in my mouth and the sound of her voice still alive in the walls. It wasn't until just before dawn that I noticed it, the photograph on the nightstand. Not the one I remembered. A different one. A photo I didn't know existed. Emma, smiling. Holding a child. Part 2, the photograph I never took. I stared at the photo for a long time, longer than I want to admit. Emma looked younger in it, softened by sunlight, hair loose around her shoulders, smiling the kind of smile I hadn't seen in years. She was sitting in the grass, holding a child in her lap. A boy. Maybe 3 or 4 years old. I hadn't taken this picture. I turned it over. No date. No handwriting. Just a faint fingerprint smudged into the corner. The boy had her eyes. That same gray-green color that always seemed to change depending on the weather. But it was the mouth, the shape of it, that stopped me. Because it was mine. Not similar. Mine. I didn't move for a long time. The edges of the room seemed to fade as I stared at that boy's face. My mind raced through memories, half-truths, nights we barely spoke, things she never told me. I tried to remember every word she'd ever said, searching for something I missed. Could she have been pregnant? No. She would have told me. Wouldn't she? Except maybe she hadn't. Maybe that night, the one that ended it all, hadn't been about the fight we thought we were having. I thought about how she screamed that she had no choice. That she had to leave. That it wasn't just about us anymore. I'd taken it to mean she was tired of the smallness of our life together. That she wanted something more. I'd assumed she meant career, travel, some unnamed future. But what if she had meant him? I didn't sleep. I couldn't. At sunrise, I packed the photo in my coat pocket and drove into town, not sure what I was looking for, just that I couldn't sit still knowing there was a child, maybe my child, somewhere out there. The town hadn't changed. Main Street still had the same weather-worn bookstore, the same diner with a crooked neon sign that never fully lit. I parked outside the diner and went in, because that's what people did in towns like this when they needed answers. They ordered coffee and asked the right person the wrong question. She was still there. Maggie. The waitress who knew everyone and never missed a thing. She looked up, recognized me immediately. Well, well. Look who the wind blew back. I managed a faint smile. Hey, Maggie. She poured coffee without asking. Still take it black? Yeah. She slid the cup across the counter. Didn't think I'd see you again. Didn't think I'd come back, I admitted. What brings you? I pulled the photo from my pocket and placed it face down between us. She picked it up slowly, turned it over. Her eyes changed, just slightly, but enough. Where'd you get this? She asked, voice low now. In the house. On the nightstand. She studied the image for a few seconds, then looked back at me. That's Emma's boy, she said quietly. I tried to breathe evenly. What's his name? Callum, she said. Callum Brooks. Brooks. Emma had taken her mother's maiden name when she left. I remember noticing it once on a piece of mail, not thinking much of it. Is he mine? She didn't answer right away. That silence was answer enough. She never said, Maggie finally whispered. But we all figured. I swallowed hard. Where is he now? Maggie looked away, out the window at something far off. They left, she said. About 8 years ago. Where? No one knows for sure, she said. But before she left, she came in here. Sat in that very seat. Told me she needed to disappear for a while. Said something had come back she thought she buried. What did she mean? Maggie hesitated. She didn't say. But her hands were shaking. I felt the world shift underneath me. Like I'd just stepped into the second act of a story I didn't know I was part of. Someone else was looking for her, wasn't there? I asked. Maggie met my eyes. And then she said, yes. A man came asking about her. Not long after she had the boy. I leaned in. Who? She looked nervous now. Tired. Like she regretted ever opening her mouth. He said he was her brother, she said. But she never told me she had one. Part 3, The Brother That Never Was. A brother. Emma never mentioned a brother. Not once in the 5 years we were together. I knew about her mother, quiet, stern, lived upstate, but a sibling. That would have come up. It had to. Except, if I'd learned anything in the last 24 hours, it was that Emma lived in layers. And I'd only ever seen the surface. Maggie leaned in slightly, voice hushed, like someone might be listening. He came in twice. First time, he just asked if she was still around. Second time, he asked about the boy. That word again. The boy. What did he look like? I asked. She frowned, trying to pull the memory from wherever it had settled. Tall. Sharp-looking. Not local. Wore a dark coat, like he didn't want to be noticed, but definitely expected to be. I nodded. You believed him? She shook her head. No. Something about him didn't sit right. And when I told him I didn't know anything, he smiled like it was a game. Did he leave a name? No. But I remember what he drove. Gray sedan. Out-of-state plates. She reached below the counter and pulled out a notepad. Wrote it down. Figured if anything ever happened. She handed me the paper. A plate number. I stared at it, like it might unlock everything. I need to find them, I said. Emma and Callum. She looked at me, eyes softening. Do you think you're ready? I didn't answer. Because I didn't know. I drove back to the house. The air had thickened with the scent of pine and rain, something electric coming in. I stood in the living room, the silence heavier now, the photo of Emma and the boy back on the nightstand, as if daring me to keep looking. I opened the closet where we used to hang our coats. At the very back, behind moth-bitten scarves and one of her old jackets, I found a shoebox. Taped shut. Untouched for years. Inside, photos. Letters. Receipts from places I didn't recognize. A map with 3 towns circled. All far from here. All unfamiliar. I sifted through everything slowly, and then I found it, an envelope, addressed in her handwriting to no one. Inside was a letter. To whoever finds this. If you're reading it, I couldn't keep running. I wanted to give Callum a quiet life. A safe one. But some people don't let go of the past. If Michael finds this, please tell him, I was trying to protect him. From the truth. From the man who came back. From Jude. That name hit like a dropped hammer. Jude. She had spoken it once. Barely. In a moment she didn't think I was listening. I remember asking who Jude was, and she brushed it off. No one, she'd said. Someone I used to know. Now his name sat in my hands like a fuse. I didn't know who Jude was. But I knew he was the reason she ran. And something told me. He wasn't finished looking. Part 4, the map she never meant for me. I stared at the letter until the words blurred. From Jude. It wasn't just fear in her writing. It was desperation. The kind of panic that doesn't fade with time, it calcifies. Hides behind ordinary days. Emma had always carried a shadow in her silence. I thought it was the past we shared. But maybe it was something she never gave a name to because naming it would make it real. Now I had that name. And it made everything feel suddenly closer. More dangerous. I unfolded the map she tucked beneath the letter. 3 towns were circled. One in Maine, one near the Canadian border, and one just across the state line, about 2 hours east. No notes, no arrows. Just inked circles, fading at the edges. I focused on the closest town, Winslow. It wasn't much. A few gas stations. A post office. A public library and a church. But it was something. That night I didn't sleep. Again. I sat in her chair by the window, the map in my lap, the letter beside it. Every creak of the floorboards felt like a footstep. Every gust of wind like a whisper. By morning, I had packed a bag. Winslow was quiet in that way some towns seem designed to forget. Low buildings, slate sidewalks, fog drifting off the nearby river like it was trying to erase everything behind it. I started with the post office. No one there remembered her name. Or Callum's. But at the library, something shifted. A young woman at the desk, probably no older than 22, squinted when I mentioned Emma Brooks. I think she came in with her son a few times, she said. He was shy. Liked the train books. My heart jumped. Do you know where they lived? She hesitated. Not exactly. They didn't stay long. Maybe 2-3 months. Then one day, they stopped coming. No warning. Did anyone else ask about them? The librarian gave me a strange look. Yeah. Once. Guy in a long coat. Asked if we had a forwarding address. Said he was family. Uncle, I think. Did he say his name? She shook her head. But I remember his eyes. Cold. Didn't blink much. That sealed it. Jude had been here. Too close. I left the library and sat in my car for a long while, the clouds pushing low against the trees, everything quiet in that ominous kind of way. I looked at the second town on the map, St. Maurice, near the border. Farther. Wilder. The kind of place people don't just pass through. I started the engine. Before I left town, I stopped at a payphone. I didn't know who else to call, so I dialed Maggie. She picked up on the second ring. "It's me. You find something?" "More than I wanted." I told her about the letter. The map. The name. She was silent for a long time. Then she said, Emma was terrified of him. She never said why, but she kept Callum close. Always. Like she expected someone to take him. "Do you know who Jude is?" "Not really. Just that he showed up the same year you left." Quiet. Watched her from a distance. "Why didn't she tell me?" "Because she thought you'd do something stupid," Maggie said. "Like go after him." I gripped the receiver harder. "Maybe I should've." "You think you're the first man who's wanted to protect her?" Maggie asked, voice cold now. "You're the last." She spent her life learning how to save herself. She hung up. I stood there with the phone still in my hand, the dial tone hissing like static guilt. Maybe Maggie was right. But I was here now. Too deep in the story to walk away. And if Jude was still looking for them, then so was I. Because Emma may have left me behind. But she never said I couldn't follow. Part 5, St. Maurice and the Man in the Mirror. The drive to St. Maurice felt longer than it should have. Not just in miles, but in weight. In time. The farther north I got, the less the world resembled anything I knew. Roads narrowed into broken asphalt. Houses grew farther apart. The trees changed, denser, darker. It felt like crossing into someone else's memory. I arrived just before dusk. St. Maurice barely qualified as a town. A handful of buildings clung to a main street like they were afraid of falling apart. A grocery store, a hardware shop, a faded motel with flickering lights and a rusted sign that read, vacancy/hot water. I booked a room under a fake name. Habit I didn't know I had in me. Inside, one bed, one lamp, a mirror too cloudy to reflect much. The kind of place where no one asks questions because no one wants answers. I left the map and letter on the nightstand. Sat at the edge of the bed and replayed her voice in my mind. I couldn't remember what she sounded like when she wasn't upset. That realization landed hard. The next morning, I started asking. Coffee shop. Gas station. Corner store. Do you remember a woman named Emma Brooks? Late 30s. Dark hair. Little boy, around 5 or 6. I got a lot of no's. Some stares. A shrug. Then, at the used bookstore wedged between two closed-up shops, the clerk said, "Yeah. I remember her. Pretty. Polite. Kid barely spoke." My pulse kicked up. She said she was staying out near Pine Hollow Road. There's a cluster of old cabins there, mostly for tourists, but a few folks live year-round. You know which one? He thought for a second. Second from the end. Red door. Are they still there? He shook his head. Left about a year ago. Real sudden. What do you mean, sudden? Woman came in here the week before. Bought a stack of kids' books. Said they'd be settling in. Then boom. Gone. No goodbye. No change of address. My throat tightened. Did anyone come looking for them? The man nodded slowly. Yeah. Tall guy. Strange presence. Asked weird questions. Said he was her cousin, but. He watched me while I talked. Like I was a chess piece. I thanked him and walked out. The wind had picked up. Cold. Bitter. Like the air was warning me off. But I drove to Pine Hollow anyway. The road was narrow and cracked, lined with skeletal trees that whispered when the wind pushed through them. I found the cabin, red door, paint peeling, weeds choking the steps. It looked abandoned, but not ruined. Like someone had left in a hurry but hoped they might come back. I knocked. Waited. Nothing. I tried the handle. Unlocked. Inside, dust floated in thin shafts of gray light. The smell of old books and something sharper, metal, maybe. I walked slowly, taking it in. A coffee mug on the windowsill. A child's sock under the couch. One of the books from the store, left open to the middle, spine cracked. They'd lived here. Laughed here, maybe. Fought. Hid. Then they vanished. I walked to the bedroom. The bed was still made. And on the wall, above the dresser, was something I didn't expect. A mirror. But not just any mirror. My mirror. The one Emma and I had shared in the house years ago. Oak frame, chipped in the corner. I remember helping her hang it, arguing about whether it was level. She'd brought it with her. Across the state. Across her life. I stepped closer, staring at my reflection in it, older now, heavier in the eyes, still carrying questions no one was answering. And then I noticed something tucked behind it. A piece of paper. I pulled it free. It was a note. Short. Crooked handwriting. Probably Emma's. If he finds us, don't look for me. I'll find you. There was no signature. Just an address. Scribbled. Almost illegible. And it wasn't hers. It was Jude's. Part 6, the line I shouldn't have crossed. I stared at the address for a long time. It wasn't in this town. Or the next. It was tucked along the edge of a county line I didn't even know existed, no street name, just coordinates and a crude description, cabin past Miller's Creek, near the break in the fence. She hadn't left it for me. That much was obvious. But she knew someone might come looking. Someone who'd find the mirror. Who'd follow every breadcrumb like a man chasing his own ghost. That someone was me. Miller's Creek sat at the end of a dirt road swallowed by brush. No signage. No cell signal. Just the sound of gravel under my tires and the rising beat of my heart in my ears. The break in the fence was there, just like she said, barely noticeable unless you were looking for it. I parked, got out, and walked. The woods were dense. Still. The kind of silence that made you believe things were watching from behind trees. I followed a narrow path that led me uphill. The sun was beginning to dip. The shadows thickened. And then I saw it. The cabin. Hidden in a clearing. Small. Low roof. One window boarded from the inside. I approached slowly, every step deliberate. Leaves crunched underfoot. No sound from within. No movement. Then the door creaked open. He was standing there. Tall. Lean. A beard now. Dark jacket, pale eyes. Jude. He looked at me like I was late. Like I'd been expected. You found it, he said, his voice low. Calm. Like we were old friends catching up after years apart. I didn't speak. Just stepped once closer. Is she here? I asked. He tilted his head slightly. You already know the answer to that. Where is she? He smiled faintly. Gone. My hands curled into fists. What do you want from her? Jude stepped forward, slow, easy. I never wanted her. Not really. I wanted what she took from me. Callum. That's not his name, he said softly. My stomach dropped. What did you say? He folded his arms. He had another name once. Before she ran. Before she changed it. You think you know her, but you don't. Not like I do. You weren't there at the start. I could barely breathe. You're not her brother, I said. No. Then who are you? He looked at me. Unblinking. And for the first time, I saw something behind his calm, something ancient, something frayed. I'm his father. The words hit like a body blow. That's not possible, I whispered. It is, he said. She didn't tell you the truth. Not then. Not now. You were the safe one. The fallback. The one she chose to protect him from me. My throat went dry. I don't believe you. He smiled again. It doesn't matter if you do. The truth doesn't need your belief. Just your silence. I stepped back. My hands were shaking. You're lying. He nodded once. Maybe. Maybe not. But if she ever wanted you to know for sure, she would have stayed. He turned and disappeared into the cabin. The door closed. I didn't follow. I walked back through the woods in the dark, his words burning through every memory I thought I understood. Callum might be mine. Or he might not. And Emma. Emma had known the whole time. Part 7, Her Silence, My Voice. I didn't sleep that night. I drove aimlessly until the woods thinned out and I found a roadside inn that didn't ask questions. I sat in the parking lot, engine off, headlights dim. The wind was high. The trees leaned like they were listening. Jude's words played on a loop. That's not his name. I'm his father. But the thing that haunted me more than anything was how calmly he said it, like the truth wasn't meant to destroy me, just, replace me. I kept the letter she left in my jacket. I pulled it out now, unfolded along the seams, edges soft from too much handling. I read it again. The line that had felt so cryptic at first now sounded like a warning. If he finds us, don't look for me. I'll find you. Maybe she hadn't meant Jude. Maybe she meant me. At sunrise, I drove to the last place on the map she'd circled. A stretch of coastline 2 hours east, isolated and mostly seasonal. People came there in the summer to forget who they were. It was the kind of place she might have gone to erase what she couldn't carry anymore. I didn't know what I hoped to find. A clue. A trail. A person who remembered her face. What I found was a woman walking a black lab down a gravel path by the shore. Late 40s, heavy coat, no rush in her step. I stopped, showed her the photo. Emma Brooks. She might have been here. A boy with her. The woman narrowed her eyes. The one who stayed in cabin 6. My heart skipped. When? Last fall. Just the two of them. She was quiet. Didn't talk much. Kept to herself. Did she say why she came? The woman shook her head. But she left a letter with the front office. Said if anyone came looking for her, and looked like him, she nodded at me, to give it to them. She dug through her bag, produced an envelope, yellowed by time. My name was written on the front in her handwriting. I opened it right there, hands shaking. Michael. If you're reading this, then you came looking. You always do. And I'm sorry. I ran not to keep him from you, but to keep him from the man I used to know. Jude wasn't always a threat. Once, he was just a mistake I believed in too long. I tried to leave before it got bad. I thought I could outrun him, but I never really did. Callum is yours. Not because of DNA or paperwork, but because of every day you stayed. Every choice you made when it got hard. You loved him before you knew he existed. That counts more than blood. He asks about you. I tell him you were the kindest man I ever knew. If I can keep him safe, I will. If I can't, I'll send him to you. Wait for me. But not forever. Emma. I folded the letter and sat on the hood of my car. My chest felt like it had been opened with shaking hands. She had loved me. She had trusted me. But she had chosen silence over pain, again. And now I didn't know if I would ever see her again. I stayed in that town 3 more days. No sign of her. No sign of Callum. On the 4th day, I started the car. I wasn't going home. Not yet. There was one more place I needed to go. Back to the cabin. Back to Jude. Because if he had answers, real ones, I needed to hear them. And if he was lying, I needed to know how far I was willing to go for the truth. Part 8, The House Between Seasons. The road back to the cabin was quieter than before. No wind. No sound. Just me and the engine humming under a sky that felt too wide. I parked where I had the last time, near the break in the fence. The woods felt different now, less like a hiding place and more like a veil I had to pass through. When I reached the cabin, the door was open. Not ajar. Wide open. I stepped inside slowly. Dust hung in the air, undisturbed. The fireplace cold. The place emptied of presents. No sign of Jude. On the table sat a manila envelope, thick with documents. On top, a single note. You were right to come back. The truth is here. What you do with it is yours. J. I opened the envelope. Inside, birth records. 2 sets. One listed Callum under Jude's name, from a clinic in another state, date scratched out, signature forged. The second, Emma's, was real. Callum Ellis. Born July 14, 2014. Father, Michael A. Lennox. My name. Legal. Verified. Undeniable. I felt something in me loosen. Not relief. Not even closure. Just, space. The kind of space where grief and hope could exist side by side. There was more in the envelope. A second note. Folded separately. Written in Emma's hand. Michael. If you're reading this, it means Jude finally gave you what I never could, a name on paper. But the truth was never in documents. It was in the mornings you would have made him pancakes. In the way you'd have sat on the floor just to build him a wooden train, even if he got bored halfway through. He is yours. Every part of him that matters. And I'm sorry I ever made you doubt that. I don't know if I'll make it back. But if I don't, I've told him enough to know where to find you. Someday, he will. And when he does, please don't tell him I ran. Tell him I gave him everything I had, until I had nothing left. Emma. I sat in that cabin until the light shifted, until shadows filled the corners and the woods outside turned to black. Then I stood. Walked out. Left the papers on the table. I didn't need proof anymore. I knew who I was. 6 months later, I was back at the house. The one we used to share. The one I once swore I'd never return to. I rebuilt the front porch. Fixed the roof. Hung the mirror in the hallway where it used to be. Each day I'd leave the front gate unlocked. Just in case. Then, one quiet Sunday in May, a car pulled up to the curb. A boy stepped out. 10, maybe 11. Shoulders tense. Hair like hers. He held an envelope. My name on it. Behind him stood a woman in a dark coat, someone I didn't recognize. She gave me a nod. I'm just the messenger, she said. His mother asked me to bring him here. She passed 2 weeks ago. I looked down at Callum. He looked up at me. Not afraid. I think I'm supposed to live here now, he said. I knelt in front of him, nodded slowly. Yeah, I said. I think you are.